with us, very timely, we have Dr. Tony Liachon. Dr. Tony Liachon, other than being an expert, is actually giving recommendations, and he reports to the National Task Force of COVID-19. He reports to Secretary Galvez. Dr. Tony Liachon, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Karen, and to all your followers.
All right, so let's start off with this. Secretary Harry Roque said as much that 11:30 this morning, he will be announcing already the recommendations on the enhanced community quarantine, on how the Philippines or how Luzon will be after April 30. UP has released a study and recommendations on how the quarantine should be conducted after April 30. What are your recommendations, Dr. Tony Liachon, so far? What has been handed to the NTF?
Well, we are in discussion with Secretary Galvez and the National Task Force. And actually, you have three choices. Number one, to be rigid about it, is another extension, which is about 15 days. Because we have the same problem as the United States. In the United States, they had the lockdown one day after President Duterte issued the lockdown, or the ECQ. So that is the main problem also in the United States. The second choice is whether you have a phase down or a rolling opening or restarting of the economy, right? So you have the two choices. And then number three, just status quo. So the recommendation for a win-win situation, because we think that the economy will not endure so much extension, is for a rolling or a phasing or a localized opening of the economy, but based on two metrics. One is epidemiological, which is actually medical, and the other one is the healthcare capacity. Now, on the first one, you need to understand the number of cases, if there are more cases, if there are more deaths, if there are less recoveries. These are the metrics of success. If the doubling time is actually short, that's important. The other important thing is the healthcare capacity. Healthcare capacity. Do you have the testing centers with you? Do you have the testing kits with you in that locality? You have the human resources with you? Do you have the funding for that? Do you have the COVID hospitals ready? Or without COVID hospitals, do you have an isolated area in the hospital with human resources to address this? Now, if you don't have that, then you might be on a rolling reopening. So, for example, the first one to have a major change is, let's say, Valenzuela. So they have everything already. They have the testing already. And then I think Pasig City, Vico, and then I think Governor John Vic Remulla. So the readiness and the preparedness of the locality. But essentially, the priority should be on essential workers. And the definition of the essential workers will be the healthcare, executive governance, banking, communication infrastructure, security, electricity, basic food, water, sanitation services, transportation. So, meaning to say, not all will be, allowed on the streets because of social distancing. While you maintain social distancing, the cough etiquette, and the hygienic measures, you have to reevaluate after, let's say, 1 week or 2 weeks, depending on the data that will be coming from the Department of Health. If there is a second wave, then you can actually, like in Singapore or Taiwan, Singapore issued a lockdown from April 7 to May 4, because when they relax, nagkaroon ng relapse or second wave because of the incoming OFW, traced to dormitories of the OFW. So, we have some models in the United States and in Singapore and other countries. In the USA, I was able to view
Mm.
the situation there. They interview usually a governor, the academe, or the health sector, and then all of them would say the health condition would actually be the priority over the economy. But you have to wait.
Mm.
They are not in our situation right now when we have launched already the testing kits and we have many quarantine areas. In the United States, they are not prepared.
Mm-mm.
So they're actually on their peak, going into their peak right now. I think with the ECQ, though it is not shown right now, the epidemiological curve,
Yeah.
I think we are plateauing or going down, because I look at the world, John Hopkins University. I usually peep on the website, and we are like this. We are on the peak, going down.
That's good news. That's
Yeah.
good news. That's
On a
good news.
day-to-day basis, I look at it because there's a website where you can see all the countries, and we are on this. And of course, with the backlog coming from the RITM and the DOH, we could not put the granular data. But my model is, of course, the John Hopkins, which is actually the world's monitor, the world beater. We are actually on that. So I'm looking at that, and I'm positive that the ECQ has made an effect. And then we have already the testing kits, like in South Korea. We have isolation. We have the infrastructure ready. The PPEs are coming. I think we're ready, and therefore we need to decide. But you need to decide right away so that on April 30, the people are ready. You cannot just announce it on April 30. There must be preparation for the local government unit, and which local government unit you're going to open based on their performance level. Based on health measures, that is the viral spread. Number two, based on their healthcare infrastructure capacity.
Okay. Wow, this is very good. Thank you for all this detail, Dr. Tony Liachon. So let's start first with some of the industries that you've mentioned, no? Just a clarification. These industries that you've mentioned clearly are essential, but also will get the economy rolling. But just a clarification, so clearly it is not in the recommendation to reopen malls and restaurants after April 30.
Well, that's the second, perhaps the second or third wave, because you cannot, like in the United States, they call it, President Trump would like to open with guns all blazing, with one bang. According to Dr. Anthony Fauci, you cannot do that. You need to analyze based on the metrics set. The essential workers definition, I got this from the Philippine College of Physicians. It is very hot. It was issued last night. And there's so much story on the rapid antibody test, in which the Department of Health and one organization would say it's only effective after 2 weeks. But after, a board resolution just yesterday, and I was past president, I was given a copy last night. As a follow-up to the recently released joint position on rapid antibody test, which has been, discussed in many chat groups, we would like to clarify that its inherent limitations do not diminish its value as a complementary tool in providing evidence of immunity in asymptomatic or recovering individuals who failed to undergo RT-PCR. Therefore, the following guidelines are therefore being recommended for its use as one of the parameters for clearing essential workers. The definition of essential workers, actually I got this from the PCP, but basically it's the same definition that we're using on also on the NTF. And therefore, they will be allowed, the selection of workers and employees allowed to return to work, only individuals with IG positive. So you have two antibodies, the IgM, which will come on the first week, and then the IgG positive. And the result they will get is that you have a negative IgM, ibig sabihin, tapos ka na doon sa first phase, and then IgG, which is the second antibody, which would mean a late stage or a previous infection, or the patient could be in the active phase of infection. You're not already on the active infection, or you're ready right now to, patients may have been infected with COVID in the past, but the infection has cleared. on the patient and has the patient recovered. So this will be the one that will be basing the certificate of immunity. In the United States, it is called certificate of immunity. In UK, it is called immunity passport. So that you will get this from the hospitals, and then you will repeat this every 2 weeks for the patients to follow up. Because the RT-PCR may be difficult to do. Yeah.
Okay, Secretary, I wanted to, Secretary tuloy, Dr. Tony, I wanted to ask you, is it possible, for example, no, I mean, in terms of implementation, so you have very big companies, for example, you have SMIC, the #1 conglomerate, you have JG Summit, these big conglomerates, Ayala, Aboitiz, and they have thousands and thousands of employees. Is it part of the recommendation that they test their own employees? In other words, the companies buy the rapid test kits and they follow a protocol issued by the government for them to test their own employees every 14 days, so that essentially if you test positive, then you can isolate yourself, go home. But if you're negative, then you can go back to work. You can be in work rather, or you could be working, and you keep the economy going. And it goes the same, for example, for media networks. So right now you have media networks already, entertainment is running on replay. So is that part of the recommendation that you want companies to test their own employees?
Okay, very good. There has been a meeting with the business group. I was not able to attend, but I think Secretary Galvez, I think with the group led by Mr. Joey Concepcion.
Yes.
And there have been meetings that they will support, the private sector will support this. But I must tell you, one company, of course, very close to my heart. My wife works at Unilever.
Okay.
My wife works with Unilever and a senior medical advisor. And they are going to tie up with St. Luke's Global.
Okay.
And all the employees of Unilever, all the expenses will be paid by Global Unilever. So basically, it may be the same template for all, since the government may not be able to shoulder all the expenses.
Yes.
And some of our poor workers may be handled by the PhilHealth or by the emergency. But I think the business sector is stepping up to the plate to help the government. And if I were able to talk with my wife just last night, then, though I don't know the details, but you're asking me right now, and we don't have much time. We have 16 days to go. I'm just telling you that this is the template. If this is the template for one company, which I know, this might be the template for the rest. And I think we welcome this opportunity that we enlist other people to help, because this is an extraordinary time. This is a time for us to help out. So I think it will be part of the recommendations of the NTF. I have a meeting today with Secretary Galvez, and as we discussed right now, we were texting. We don't know yet. I'm just an advisor. The final decision will be with Secretary Galvez and the IATF, and of course with the President. But I think this is the sentiment right now of the NTF. And since the decision will be made 11:30, then I might as well tell you what we're planning. And of course, the granularity of that report will be dependent on Secretary Galvez.
Okay. Well, because it makes sense that if you're employed in a big company, for the company to start going again is they conduct the rapid testing on their employees. Actually, this is the same thing Presidential Advisor Joey Concepcion has been telling me in our conversations. But if you are, for example, if you are a fish vendor, syempre hindi ka employed. If you diba, nagbebenta ka sa kalye, hindi ka employed, dapat yung testing nun, gobyerno ang sumagot nun.
PhilHealth yun. Remember si Cabsec Carlo Nograles, meron talaga tayong allocation kasama na doon sa emergency powers that PhilHealth will actually address the poorest of the poor. I think kasama yun, hindi naman ganun kamahal yun kumpara sa RT-PCR. And look at what happened, let's say, sa meron din LGU sponsored like Valenzuela. LGU sponsored
Yeah.
yun, sabi na libre. So marami kang template eh. Pwedeng private companies doing it, pwedeng LGU doing it, or sponsor ka ng, let's say si Mr. Ramon Ang will sponsor kids. Pwede yon as long as you follow the guidelines para iisa yon.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about mass testing before we go to the antibodies in layman's term that I want you to explain. Itong mass testing na ito, no, you are following templates, best practices. Ano ba ang pwede nating matutunan sa South Korea? Because South Korea did not lock down, and yet they were able to contain the virus. Can we replicate South Korea, or is it impossible for the Philippine setting?
When I first presented at the NTF about 2 weeks ago when I was on board, so I presented about 15 slides, and there are 2 references that I use. One is the Ebola outbreak. The first is based on the congressional hearing. So I got the final summary. First is you have the isolation through enhanced quarantine. Then number 2, mass testings. Test. Number 3, protect the healthcare workers. Number 4, you have a military support for the command center. And the last one is the economic recovery. So what I like is the Korean model because they did not do the ACQ. The first pillar is actually mass testings. So you have the drive-through using the RT-PCR because at that time, hindi pa uso yung antibody. So they use the RT-PCR pero mabilis ang results sila. It about 2 hours lang. Drive-through, separate or detached from the hospital because you don't want the hospital to be overburdened.
Tama.
Right? Okay. Kasi baka mamaya mahawad doon. So ginawa nila drive-through. Okay. And number 2 na ginawa nila, massive contact tracing using their information technology. So, all right. And then they have isolation area and quarantine areas as well. And then number 4, they enlist a lot of help coming from the private sector. Kumbaga, tulong-tulong. So I like the template of the Koreans. And one thing na sinabi doon is the sense of urgency. The earlier pala you start, the template na binanggit ko, kasi common yung Ebola at saka yung Korea. Common yung 4 eh. The only one na iba lang, walang lockdown sa Korea. So the earlier you start, the earlier you will restart the economy. So ibig sabihin, let's say, nauna Valenzuela, una ka nagtayo ng healthcare infrastructure mo, kasi ang diagnosis mo dito, parang when you go to the doctor, you need a diagnosis, a point of care diagnosis. Alam nang pauwiin ka. Yun ang missing link sa atin eh. So the diagnosis will be the RT-PCR and the antibody test right now. Now, una, nung bagong dating siya, there were resistance of course because you need clinical trials pa. But you're in a war. You need to save more lives right now and be flexible. So ang ginagamit kong template is the United States, si Dr. Anthony Fauci. And you know naman how emotional and flamboyant si President Donald Trump and gusto na niya kagad mag-start as a businessman. But the more rational Dr. Fauci would say, health first with tweaking of the environment. And then you build habits and you rally your people. You need to do that. That's the sentiments of Dr. Fauci. And of course, Dr. Fauci has prevailed over the more emotional and impulsive President Trump.
No, I agree with you. So let me go first with this. No, you said South Korea. So they did a drive-through method using the RT-PCR, and it was 2 hours testing. Do you mean in 2 hours they get the results? Was that what you meant?
Yes. Either they will text or through email, malalaman mo na results mo. So kung positive ka, magka-quarantine ka sa bahay kung wala ka masyadong symptoms.
Tanong ko, alam mo naman, Dr. Tony, in the past, lumalabas ang resulta kung positive ka sa COVID sa Pilipinas after 4 days, 5 days, there was even a point 10 days. Based on your meetings, kakayanin ba natin to? Do we have the infrastructure now na kapag nagpa-test ka, we can have it in 2 hours like South Korea? Anong kailangan natin para magkaroon ng ganito kabilis na resulta?
Okay. look at Mayor Rex Gatchalian. They actually coordinated with Medical City. And Medical City is a top medical institution. So the standards of Medical City nandun na. So kunyari ang RT-PCR would take about 48 hours. Pinalagyan ko yan in the columnar meeting, efficiency measures. Let's say kung ang promise nila ay 48 hours, then turnaround time should be 48 hours. In fact, dapat nga 1 day. So ganon. But with establishment of many centers right now, let's say you have 11, you have...
I think you have 15. Well, right
15,
now they said 15.
Yeah. Kasi depending on the stage of their implementation, there are 5 stages, di ba, Karen? Yung iba, nandun sa stage 4, konting training lang yan and validation, yun na yun. But ang total niyan, nationwide will be 54. So yung ibang nahuhuli, like now in Mindoro, may 6. So eventually, sabi ko, mag-testing kits na kayo dyan. Kasi kung meron na kayong 6 yan, ang doubling time yan, mabilis. So what I'm saying, ito na yung pumasok na yung antibody. And this will address, Karen, the 80% asymptomatic na naglalakad lang, na siya pala ang carrier ng sakit. Kasi kaya mataas ang mortality natin, yung death, at saka mababa yung recovery. Because kulang yung kits natin, ang natetest lang natin yung serious cases. So therefore, siyempre tataas yung mortality mo kasi hindi mo naman nafa-follow up yung mga asymptomatic cases na nire-recover. In South Korea, nafa-follow up nila yon. Kunyari positive ka, o sige, balik ka rito. Pagbalik no, negative na. So tataas yung recovery mo. Ngayon, magiging konti ang deaths mo because nabantayan mo siya. Ang iba kasi dyan, pagka dati ang protocol, balik kayo sa hospital pag may hirap ng huminga. Dead ka na nun kasi that is the symptom na baka mag-acute respiratory distress syndrome ka.
Pero Dr. Tony, right now, when you mentioned the Valenzuela example, they tied up with Medical City. So Medical City releases the results in 2 days, 48 hours. Pero in South Korea, 2 hours they're releasing the results. Is it the
maybe because in the journal New York Times sabi nila in hours lang. You know naman ang variables in the Philippines kaya nilalagay natin 48 hours.
Pero hospital
if Medical City can do less than 48 hours, I think it can be done.
No, pero ang tanong ko lang, hospital lang ba ang pwede mag-release ng results after testing? Or I know this isn't like, it's often used as an example, it's not a pregnancy test that in 15 minutes, you know when you're pregnant.
Kasi nasopharyngeal.
Is there another way? Yeah. Is there another way? So dapat ospital talaga, Doc Tony, kasi it's a swab.
Oo, yung swab kasi kokolektahan. Sa Valenzuela, ang ginawa nila, I look at their video, the employees from the city health officer, and then they collect, then they pinapadala nila sa Medical City within Valenzuela. And then siyempre, ikaw na nagpa-follow up doon, knowing that TMC naman, Medical City is good. I think baka less than 48 hours meron ka ng result. Kasi kinuha naman nila hindi mga serious cases. Pero ang priority mo, yung mga ite-testing within nasa hospital because they're the persons na magkakaroon ng complications.
Okay. So let's talk about now, President Duterte said last night he's willing to lift the lockdown if antibodies are developed. And you have the likes of St. Luke's and other hospitals already calling for COVID survivors to come out and donate plasma. In layman's terms, can you explain this whole process and how it can help us?
Pagka nagkasakit ka si Karen, let's say may virus infection, pagpalagay natin ay measles or chickenpox, nagde-develop ka ng antibodies doon para maprotektahan ka. Right? Okay. Now, since virus ito na bago, hindi mo alam kung ang behavior nito ay katulad ng hepatitis B na pwede kang mahawa tapos may chronic hepatitis ka. Tapos that can maging liver cancer. Or SARS ka na hindi ka nababalik. Or para kang flu na mild lang pala, na magpahinga ka lang, okay lang. Diba? Parang seasonal flu. Tapos magpapabakuna ka once a year. Wala tayong ebidensya noon. Ang bakuna pa mangyayari 1.5 years. Kaya ang nangyayari dito, mag-a-antibody test ka para malaman mo kung nagkaroon ka ng antibody tapos papasok ka, pero with the same CAF etiquette, social distancing. Tapos, kasi ang i-measure kasi noon, reinfection or mahinang resistensya mo. At alam mo naman na hindi ka makakahawa na kung may antibodies ka. Pero meron kang follow-up na every 2 weeks. Mura lang, 500 pesos I think ang kalkulasyon as opposed to the 1.5 of the RT-PCR. And it is your life. Ano namang masama doon kung 500? And for 15 minutes, you'll be able to do that. And then hindi mo naman alam, yung 14 days kasi mahirap yan eh. Kasi nagsisinungaling naman ng pasyente kung kailan ka nagkasakit eh. Di ba? So why not i-random mo na lang? Like for example, there are many shanties and slum areas dito na tabi-tabi yun. I'm sure some of them hindi makapunta sa ospital eh. And then you can do random sampling with this antibody. Sa tagal na nating meron nito, 1 month, imposibleng wala ka makakapture dyan eh. And therefore, you don't have to do the entire community. You have to cordon sanitize that particular group. And we call it pool testings. Kunyari, yung ama, mayroong positive. Di alam mo na dapat yun.
Okay. No, Dr. Tony, so for the public to understand in layman's terms, no, let's start with si Senator Sani Angara went to UP, to St. Luke's, and he donated his plasma. So perhaps you can explain in layman's terms what happens after. What is the process? Okay. And what do doctors look for? And in finding those antibodies, what do they do with it after? Okay,
ganito yan. So kunyari naging full course na at magaling na yung mga tao, like si Senator Sani Angara, at iba yung may 3 pa nag-donate. I think si Senator Mix mag-donate din.
Yes.
So pag galing mo, di may antibodies ka na. So na-check na siguro si Senator Angara na may antibody na, di ba? So ililipat mo yon kung nanonood ka ng Outbreak, yung si Dustin Hoffman at si Rene Russo. Magically nabuhay ka agad. So unang pinagbigyan daw to, according to Senator Angara's write-up. May write-up I don't know kung siya nagsabi. Tapos given to a serious case in St. Luke's at nasa ICU. So ganun siya. So para mag-i-infuse ka ng antibodies ngayon, para labanan nung antibody, yung virus doon sa'yo, aside from the medications being given.
So, Doc, hindi itong antibodies, pag kinunan ka ng dugo, in layman's terms, let's say, so they draw out blood from you.
Yung puti ang kukunin. I-separate siya ng laboratory. Di ba, pag kinuha ka, di may pula. Ang kukunin yung plasma. The white of the dugo, ang tawag doon plasma. Ipaghihiwalay pa yan ng hematologist and lab. Ngayon, sa Amerika yan, ano rin yan, parang experimental. Kaya lang, you're in a war. You're in a crisis. You need to do things to save more lives. Kaya yung definition ni Presidente, I agree with the President. Kasi you're in a war situation right now eh. Kung ang Amerika din, they're making bold steps right now, but hindi mo kailangang sabayan. So we want to save more lives eh. And also in the Harvard Business Review of the Italy experience, if you do not do multiple approaches, the patients will die. The doctors will die. Kaya yung Veneto and Lombardy, magkaiba nangyari. Mas marami mortality sa Lombardy because Veneto took a different step and more aggressive one. So they were able to save more lives. So in this one, in leading change, the most important thing is actually the sense of urgency. Dapat agile ka dito. Agile ka na pinag-iisipan mo. The time to make plan is over. This is a time to make decisions.
Dr. Tony, is there any other country that has already shown success when infusing plasma to COVID-positive patients?
Well, there are bright spots, no? Meron sa China. In fact, meron sa China, meron din sa US na ginagawa. And then kasama to sa kanilang clinical trial. So pipirma ka lang na you're part of the clinical trial. Tapos pagka meron na yung sizable proportion, ilo-launch na nila yan. But it doesn't mean na hindi ka pwedeng gawin yon kasi your life is on the line eh. Papayag ka eh. Ngayon, kung may success stories, let's say from China, like let's say Hubei, sino naman ikaw para hindi pumayag when you have already ngayon na ang China ngayon nag-open na, ang Hubei co-open na I think a few days ago. And therefore, kung yung epicenter ngayon, 81,000 yung cases, ngayon ang Amerika, grabe ang Amerika ngayon, 550 cases. So, draconian measures ang ginamit for China, and it went well. Yun ang tingin ko. You need to do things like that kasi meron ka ng template based on reference modeling.
Okay. Last words. Dr. Tony Liachon, if you can wrap it up, what is most important essentially for us to prepare for after April 30. I think that's what everybody is waiting for essentially. What happens after April 30? Dr. Tony.
What happens after April 30? There will be a rolling starting of the economy. I think I have to talk with my boss. We have a meeting at 10 o'clock. But I think that will be very important. That's number one. Then you have to select the local government unit based on the metrics set, based on their viral spread, new cases, deaths, recoveries, the testing capacity, the healthcare capacity, the human resources. So I discussed already the metrics for the health, metrics for healthcare capacity. And then you will do the antibody testing for asymptomatic, probable, and confirmed cases, right? Using the antibody test to complement the RT-PCR, which is the gold standard. Particularly in cases where you cannot do the RT-PCR, the poorest of the poor or those living in shanties and community. And then they will be given certificate of immunity so that they can work. And the private sector can do their thing, or the local government unit can do their thing and partner with a huge medical institution so that you unburden the RITM. And then the RITM should be able to submit the data right now, which is actually lagging, so that we can plot the epidemiological curve. So that we can put that every Filipino citizen is looking for the curve while other countries are doing it. I'm looking at CNN. Unbelievable. May curve eh. Wala sa Pilipinas eh. Because of the granularity of data na hindi na makaya ng RITM. So that the researchers can go to RITM or the UP system of Dr. Ted Arbosa. Amin na yan. Yan datang yan. Para mag-drawing na namin ang curve right now.
Okay. Well, on that note, I want to thank you, Dr. Tony Liachon, for your time this morning. And I do hope we can speak to you again so you can update us when a final decision has been made on what you said is the rolling opening for the restarting of the economy. Take care. God bless you, Dr. Tony Liachon. Be well, sir.
Thank you very much, Karen. Thank you.